So in this guide, I'm not about to state the obvious by telling you to pick a class and learn the class for Dragonflight or level some alts in preparation for the expansion. And that's because I know that anybody watching this video must be extremely attractive, smart, and most importantly, talented at video games. And with that, let's now get into my top 5 overlooked tips for getting an optimal start in Dragonflight with a gold making twist. So with that, counting down from number 5, we not only have picking your professions of choice, but also the specializations you plan to spec into. And not only that, but the order in which you want to actually spend your profession knowledge to get deeper into each specialization. So professions will not only play an immense role in Dragonflight, both for gold making, but also in terms of endgame activities, for which there are actually a lot. And profession knowledge, which are sort of the talent points you'll have to spec into each profession, are actually somewhat time gated, with there being endgame activities at a limited quantity, whether it be daily or weekly quests and whatnot, or reputation methods that you'll be able to slowly use to trickle into your profession talent points. And even if you don't necessarily care that much about making gold through professions, although I can't really imagine anybody who wouldn't, but anyhow, you might still want to consider speccing into professions anyway to be able to, if not craft gear and other items for other players, be able to craft them for yourself. And that's because, somewhat similar actually to Shadowlands with legendary crafting, in Dragonflight there's actually going to be a new time-gated reagent called the Spark of Ingenuity, which will come in very limited quantities but actually allow you to craft really powerful gear for the endgame that'll allow you to get a huge and targeted at any gear slot you want power spike before having to rely on difficult and RNG content from raids and Mythic Plus and PvP and so on and so forth. And obviously give you a significant edge in those aforementioned activities as well. And this actually leads nicely into my second tip, or rather counting down from number 5, we have number 4, which is to befriend and gain connections with other players such as other crafters, or by joining a guild where people might be in need of your crafting services or even gathering services. And this not only has implications for gold making, but again, as I'd mentioned, because you're able to target endgame powerful gear and sort of customize them with secondary stats and whatnot with the Spark of Ingenuity in crafting, by befriending and knowing more of these endgame item crafters, or by being a provider of these yourself, you'll be able to have a lot more flexibility and, again, an advantage in the endgame by being able to craft the pieces as you gain these sparks of ingenuity and be able to target the slots and pieces that you actually need, preferably from the most advanced crafters, which will then get you the highest item level and quality for each of your slots, and thus giving you even more power, right? And on the crafting and provider side, the more players that you'll have that can take up on your orders, the better it is for your gold making options. And in fact, there's actually a new endgame activity for professions wherein you have to complete a crafting order to gain further knowledge points that allow you to then specialize even further into your professions to allow you to make even more gold. And now, if you haven't done so already, you can also consider checking out my other video that I'll link below, where I cover the professions and specializations that I'll be prioritizing at the beginning of Dragonflight for lazy gold making. And I have yet another video where I simplify and explain crafting in about 10 minutes to also allow you to squeeze the most out of your crafting to optimize your gold making and item quality. So be sure to check out those videos below. Moving on and counting down to tip number 3, and to actually add on to what I've been saying before about specifically profession knowledge points, which again are like your talent points. In the end game, there are going to be various activities that you'll be able to do, like world quests to be able to gain these knowledge points. But another significant way to get a head start, especially in these profession knowledge points, is to seek out the various treasures around Dragonflight, many of which are hidden, and thus you would have to look up some guides for finding out the locations of these knowledge point treasures around the Dragon Isles. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for one of these guides as soon as it comes out on, say, Wowhead, and I'll also be sure to link one of those guides in the description of this video as soon as I find one. And as a bonus to this, especially if you're going to be focusing on gold making and Dragonflight, it would be wise to learn about all the different sources for profession knowledge in the end game to give you a first to market or sort of first to specialization tree advantage to be able to allow you to craft more cheaply with higher item level and so on and so forth, right? To really give you that gold making edge. And for that, I plan to make a video, which I'll link in the description of this video as well, which again will cover all the endgame activities specifically for gatherers and crafters and just professions in general and gold making. So again, these are a new set of endgame activities specifically geared towards professions, which I think is a great change for people who want to focus on this type of gameplay and fantasy. And with that, counting on to number 2, and kind of similar to the previous tip where you'll be learning about and flying around the Dragon Isles to pick up your profession knowledge through treasures, we also have these dragon riding glyphs which will help you optimize your dragon riding, which again is a major feature of Dragonflight. And the better your dragon riding becomes, the more you specialize into it, so you can actually, upon hitting max level, go and pick up as many of these glyphs as you can to optimize and essentially max out your dragon riding, which again obviously is going to be extremely important for efficiency of gameplay in the end game, right? And for this, and actually leading on to my last tip here, we have first of all, and I'll sort of break it down to 2 parts, but the first part is to optimize your add-ons for Dragonflight, of course, right? This might seem sort of like an obvious tip, but I do have some specific add-ons that I recommend. The first of which is Handy Notes, and there's actually a sub add-on, if you will, of Handy Notes, which by the way, the add-on itself is one that helps you track hidden items and various things around your map, and there's actually one specifically for dragon riding glyphs, so that'll be immensely helpful for again maxing out your dragon riding as soon as you can. And besides that, the overall Dragonflight Handy Notes add-on version will likely encapsulate a lot of these things, including perhaps artifact knowledge treasures as well, so you definitely want to install that and keep that updated as well. And of course, whether or not you're a hardcore gold maker, Trade Skill Master is going to be incredibly helpful as well, sort of as your go-to add-on for everything related to professions. It'll actually help greatly, especially for crafting, because it actually helps you determine profit margins on the go, so that's extremely helpful, among other functionalities like helping you track your expenses and profits and seeing how good essentially your strategy is for gold making and whether or not you can actually make enough to earn WoW tokens to be able to sustain your WoW subscription, which is one of my primary goals for playing World of Warcraft. In fact, I actually earn a surplus of gold to be able to make or purchase even more Battle.net balance for me to be able to fund other games. So I actually release a detailed guide on how I do the entire process later on when Dragonflight comes along, so stay tuned for that. And last but not least, and I consider this to be part 2 of my final tip, and that is to not overlook some of the new interface options. And not only that, but be sure to customize and optimize all your interface like action bars and how your interface actually looks through edit mode, and also whether you want to enable some of the new features like the interact button, which is new, and also things like the smart targeting, which allows you to target things just by swinging your camera around and just looking at things. And I do think that optimizing your UI and settings is fairly underrated and can go a long way to see what you actually would get used to and would find more success playing with, especially in the end game, right? Especially when you get into more of that cutting edge stuff, this can actually make or break a lot of things. And those are my top underrated tips for an optimal Dragonflight start with a gold making twist. Now do let me know what you think in the comment section below. If I missed anything or if you have any other tips to add, I'll be happy to read your comments and also reply to them as well. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace.